Today we're going to talk through a pretty big card trimming situation associated with Evan Mathis, former NFL player. We're going to talk through a video that this guy dropped in the last few days that should be pretty alarming to you if you are a participant, if you are a collector within this hobby, because some of the tools and techniques used is pretty scary in my opinion. I'll then very quickly talk to you, through this guy's history in the past and the accusations around him, based on some information on the blowout, forums that you guys should check out for yourselves. And then more importantly, I want to focus in on what appears to be a pretty big lack of pushback from people within the hobby that think this guy is doing, things that are a-okay, which again, when you see what I'm about to show you, you're going to be pretty shocked in my opinion. Now, this guy dropped a video on TikTok. It goes for about 5 minutes, so you can show and see the full thing for yourself. I'm just going to show some of it now. But he basically goes through all the tools and things that he uses to try and, get a better grade on a card. Now, I'll play this for you as I'm talking, and then I'll call out a few bits as we go. So here's a paper cutter, he's using a ruler, a few other things like a microscope, which the ruler microscope, you're like, they're fine. Card savers, he uses, a tool to rub down edges, he uses wax paper, he uses all these very dodgy things, including nail files to, try and do some hanky-panky. Now, some people have sort of seen this video and they're saying, well, he's just doing it to educate, he's just doing it to have a bit of fun, which again, I'll show you the blowout forums in a second, which probably tell you it's not a bit of fun, but I don't see how this is fun when you're looking at the level of sophistication he's talking to and the types of techniques he's using, right? This appears to be, very, very serious, and it appears to be tools and techniques used by someone that if they wanted to try and take advantage of a grader and then take advantage of a customer by selling them a card they've manipulated, they've tampered with, these are the kind of techniques I'd imagine they would be using. And one thing I want you guys to keep front of mind as well is this is fraud. Some of you might say, well, he's just playing around with the card. It's PSA's fault, it's BGS's fault, it's SGC's fault for missing the fact that it was tampered with. It's like, no, he's tampering with this card, or people are tampering with this card, I should say, manipulating it, basically doing it to try and, commit fraud in the sense that they want to trick the person buying it into thinking the card was better than it was. Because essentially when you're altering a card, when you're trimming it, when you're doing all these things, you're ruining the integrity of the card and you're actually going against the terms and conditions of these graders. So it's not like you're just having a bit of fun. It's like, no, you're doing something, you're tampering with the card to try and intentionally deceive a customer out of, their hard-earned dollars, because they're not going to pay for a low-valued card or a low-graded card. They're going to pay for a graded card out of 9 or a 10, as an example. They're going to pay top dollar for that. You're taking advantage of that, mindset. Now, some of the things you're seeing here, he's basically giving pot shots when you hear the audio to Nat Turner, to the blowout forums. It just seems very strange that he would come out and do this, to be honest, because when you've got a history like he does, it just doesn't make any sense. He's using the paper cutter. You'll see, he's trimmed off, the edges of the card. He's joking about the whole thing. It's crazy. He's using the ruler there to try and rub down the edges. There's a part over here where you'll see him play around with, a nail file. I think it's a little bit later on. It's just crazy. And you can sort of see there, like the techniques that are being used just don't appear to make any sense whatsoever, in the sense that why would you put this out there if you were joking? Why would you put this out there if you're trying to educate? This looks far more calculated than anything else. Now, in terms of the history of this person or the allegations, the accusations towards them, check out the blowout forum thread. It is literally 70-something pages long, dating back to 2019, and there is a crap ton of cards within here that have been flagged by people from Blowout. Now, as we've talked about Blowout forums in the past, the same with Tiffany cards, the research that these guys do is freaking amazing. The things they can find based on cards these people own through their social media platforms, their personal pages, through seeing them at card shows, through their eBay stores, is unbelievable. These guys are like the ultimate, detectives on the internet, and the things they find are pretty alarming and almost speak for themselves, right? These are, allegations because nothing's been proven, but come check out this page. You're going to see some pretty, scary things that speak to, why you should be concerned about seeing that video, right? The other thing very quickly before I show you, some of these cards, is some pretty prominent associates named here. You've got Rick Probstein, you've got Jason Coons, who's also got pretty big accusations about him being a card trimmer. If you're not sure who he is the CEO and founder and I think head grader out at ISA Grading, which again is a freaking scary thing to hear when you're talking about somebody that's graded a lot of cards with PSA. They've got their own grading company now. What kind of hanky-panky is freaking going on? But you check out the rest of this thread, and this is just the first post, and you're literally seeing, I think, like dozens of freaking cards associated with this person at some point where they've got, footage of prior to his ownership and then after ownership looking like this. It's very freaking alarming. And again, come check it out for yourself to get a bit more information, but you can sort of see here, it just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. And that's just the first freaking page. So when you're seeing that video, it's not ha ha ha, it's not funny. And I was pretty disappointed to see someone like Prism God, as an example, comment basically saying what this guy was doing was legendary, because people see former NFL player and they automatically want to become simps, or they're commenting on things within the hobby that they've got no freaking idea about, right? It's, you gotta be very careful about your, influence and the message you're giving, because he basically says it's legendary. He gets caught out by Jen Leland, who I think is a group breaker or participates in a lot of breaks and whatnot. She basically gives this guy some insight as to, be very careful what you're saying here. Now, if you're not sure who Prism God is, he's got a pretty big popular channel. I think he runs the Culture Collision card show. He was, in fact, part of that fake pack battle that we spoke about with DAP Sports, Great Curator, and Mojo Sports as well. He was the fourth guy in on that. But what I thought was pretty funny, and again speaks to what the heck Evan Mathis is trying to do in this situation, is I basically say, Prism God, you know who this guy is, right? You know about the sketchy cards associated with him. Like, this guy is not legendary, right? This is just crazy what this guy is doing. He actually replied to me and said, then the card man enlightened us on all the sketchy cards associated. My response to him was pretty simple. Like, I'm sure, Evan, you've searched your own name on Sports Card Radio or on the Blowout forums, and you've seen those pages and you've seen those accusations. Like, again, with a history like that, and you're putting out a video like this that has all this information and techniques and tools and what appears to be something very sophisticated and something that you're very confident and comfortable in doing, it raises a lot of questions and speaks to what the heck are you doing by putting this video out there? So many people laughed it off and said, he's just joking, he's just looking for attention. But it's like, you've got this past. What the heck are you doing? Why are you doing this? You're bringing so much unneeded attention to yourself. And I kind of like the fact that he did the video firstly, because at minimum, it's helping people be aware of what you need to be trying to spot when you're looking to buy, graded and raw cards that have maybe been tampered with, because there's some things in there that you can watch and say, okay, that makes sense for me to try and avoid, or I know to look for that. But again, you've got a pass like that. What are you doing? Did somebody pee him off at, PSA that he can't submit anymore? It's like, what the heck is going on to get your mindset into doing that? Now, Sports Card Radio, I think I should have flagged this at the very start of the video. They talked about this, a day ago. They flagged to remind everybody that this Mickey Mantle PSA 9 that sold for $5.2 million in January of 2021 was formerly owned by this individual. There are so many cards that have gone through these hands, that have gone through his hands, that have gone through the hands, of all these associates that, should raise some questions. How many vintage cards are actually out there that have been, tampered with, that have been altered, that have been played around with, that you maybe own as a collector, that you are now very concerned about, that might have been tampered with, right? It's just freaking scary, and I just don't get it. I'm very curious to get your thoughts on that. So I'm almost speechless, right? And how often do you see me sort of do that? The thing that I really want to talk about today, and I know I've spoken already for 8 minutes, is the Carbon post, because they flagged it rightfully and they asked a really good question around, okay, well, what is, PSA, BGS, and SGC going to do? The thing that I found so alarming by reading these Carbon comments, and you can sort of see my response here, is the amount of people that are saying it's okay. The amount of people that are saying, well, that's not an issue because all the stuff he's doing is fine. Even the card trimming is fine because the card was bigger than it should have been from the factory. So he's just bringing down the factory requirements. And it's like, that's not fine because it goes against, what these third-party graders are doing. And you can almost guarantee that people that do partake in those kinds of techniques are not telling the freaking person they're selling the card to that they've done those things, which is freaking fraud. You should go to jail for that kind of thing. Like, I don't understand in what world people think this stuff is okay. And this goes back to my videos on Kurt's Card Care in the past, where I got so much pushback from people saying, well, he's not doing anything bad. He's just putting a few chemicals on there to polish the card because the QC process sucks. He's just bringing it back to how the card should have come from the factory. It's like, as I said at the time, you can do whatever you want to your card. You just need to tell people what you did before you sell it to them. And the other thing that I flagged at that very same time period was also the things that you're saying now that are making that okay are going to normalize that behavior, which means that when things pop off like this with card trimmings and you got actual paper cutters being used and nail files filing down edges and all these sort of stuff, that's going to make that the new norm. And it's going to make that okay for some people too. And we're seeing that now. People became normalized to what Kurt's Card Care is doing. So now this stuff is what Kurt's Card Care was when that first popped off, right? People were scared at first and now they're saying, oh, it's sort of okay. This is not okay. Trimming down cards like this and not disclosing it to your customers is not okay. I can't comprehend how people have normalized that whole situation. This is what happens when you normalize that. Because then the people that were doing hanky-panky with that process just stepped that little bit further now. And yes, card trimming has always been around, but I'm talking about the sentiment, the mindset from the average collector, from the average investor. They think it's okay because they want to sell that card and make as much money as possible. So much of our freaking mindset within this hobby at the moment has been focused in on making a profit. It's about collecting cards, guys. Like, yes, you can do both, but you need to be collecting cards. You can't be doing this kind of behavior. If you're doing this thing and you're not, educating people and you're not saying to people, I had, polish use on this card, I trimmed this card, then you are a terrible person. You are a scammer. And I don't care how you want to try and defend it all you want. If you're not disclosing it when you sell it to someone, you are a terrible person and I do not want anything to do with you. And I would imagine that 99% of other people within this hobby would also agree with me. And the ones that don't care about whether you disclose it or not are the ones that are probably doing it. So very keen, like I say, as always, get your thoughts on this situation. Sorry I mumbled at points within this video. It was a lot to talk to. I'm really keen to get your thoughts on this because I find the whole situation freaking crazy. I can't believe people are saying this is okay. I can't believe people think this is funny, that this guy's doing it for a joke. The techniques used, that's not somebody joking. That looks very sophisticated. When you factor that into the allegations about this individual, it then raises lots of questions. There's no proof that this guy scammed cards in the past. There's no proof that this guy's trimmed cards or scammed individuals or committed this kind of fraud. But there's lots of questions there, and it's almost hard to ignore sometimes. So read this sort of stuff, make up your own mind. Again, my opinion shouldn't matter to you, right? Just have a look, make up your own mind, let me know what you think down in the comments below, because there's so much allegations and accusations in this space. I just can't imagine why somebody would put this out there and bring more attention to it. It just doesn't make sense to me. So, thanks for watching. As always, I really do, appreciate your support, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.